Welcome to episode 190 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. Can you imagine losing your toddler in front of your other older children? Today's guest experienced the trauma and pain of losing her 3-year-old son to a massive heart attack while her other children were in the room. Mashira Taylor's son Max had heart issues when he was born that eventually led to having open heart surgery to correct these issues. Her children were outside playing, and her son was indoors because his stomach ached. He told her he felt like he was going to throw up before he passed away from a massive heart attack, which looked like a seizure. In this episode and Surviving Pregnancy Loss series, she shares how she questioned God throughout the entire process of losing her son, how she had to explain that her son passed away to her other children, and how she's surviving after loss by starting a nonprofit foundation for those going through the grieving process in honor of her son. This episode is for you to listen to if you ever question your faith in God on your loss journey. This episode is for you to listen to if you've ever experienced a child loss. Here is Mashira Taylor. Thank you for joining us on the series Surviving Pregnancy Loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee, and I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Mashira. Mashira, would you please share with our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Mashira Taylor, and I am originally from Ypsilanti, Michigan, and I currently reside in Ohio. Right now, I actually work part-time in dietary at a rehab facility. I go back and forth between being either an aide or a cook, but right now I mainly just like to do kind of like aide work. I have 5 children in total. I've been married. It'll actually be 10 years, October 18th. So my anniversary is coming up. Excited about that. And that's pretty much like me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. I love it. I love it. So take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your loss story.
So I actually found out that I was pregnant. This would be my 3rd child. I found out that I was pregnant September 2012. And I went in for just a regular ultrasound in December, which is supposed to be a routine ultrasound. And they had noticed that we knew it was a boy. They had just told us it was a boy. And they told me that something was very wrong with his heart. They actually couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. They didn't know. The whole thing was kind of like a mystery. So the only options that they had given me was to either abort the pregnancy or to carry on with the pregnancy as if it was normal and to not know what I was going to be, going into after delivery. They gave us literally a total of 5 minutes to make the decision. By me being so far along, the window to abort I was at it. So they had to know my answer right away. Me and my husband made the decision right away that we were not going to abort the pregnancy. We just truly believe whatever God placed on our plate is what we were going to, endure. So we decided to carry on throughout the pregnancy normally. He was supposed to be due April 28th, and he ended up coming on May 1st. When I went to actually go in for that last ultrasound, they had noticed that there wasn't any fluid around him, and so they ended up deciding to go ahead and induce my labor. They didn't want to induce him early because they were hoping that by him being in there the full term inside the womb, that his heart would kind of fix itself. After I gave birth to him on May 1st, within hours, the doctors were swarming my bed, and they picked my child up without telling me anything, and they told me to kiss him goodbye. And I didn't understand. And so they came back with papers and stuff, and they were telling us that the some part of the heart that immediately after you're born, it usually closes off, and which means you're able to stay in life on your own. You're no longer connected to the mother, and they needed to take him right away because they actually needed that to stay open, because that was the only thing that was keeping him alive. Was for some reason his body was still basically like reacting like it was still attached to me. And this was after he was outside of the womb. So he actually ended up surviving for that period of time. And he went in and he had to have his first open heart surgery at 5 days old. They said that he had, they call it transposition of the greater arteries, which is also dextro transposition, which is the big name for it, of the greater arteries. And he had 2 open heart surgeries before he was a month old. And he got to come home at 3, after 3.5 months in the hospital, he was able to come home. He went through several other operations and procedures all the way up until then. They still were really confused as to what exactly, to how to treat him. Like they really didn't know because his situation was so complicated. He was doing well from what we thought. He had just had a doctor's appointment. This is fast forwarding to December of 2016. He had had a doctor's appointment and they had did more, tests and stuff on him. And they were thinking that he may need another surgery by the age of 4. But on February 17th of 2017, he just was outside playing like a regular child. And he said that his stomach hurt. And so I said, do you feel like you need to throw up? Because he was kind of motioning like he needed to throw up. And he told me yes. So I took him into the bathroom, but he didn't throw up. So I told him, just sit down on the couch, because I was in the middle of ironing. So I wanted to go lay my clothes down on the bed. And so I laid the clothes on the bed, and I seen out of my peripheral vision, I seen him do a complete somersault off the couch. And when I ran in there, I thought he was like, it almost looked like he was having a seizure, but from him shaking. And they literally just think that he just passed from just a massive heart attack out of nowhere. So he died at the age of 3, right before his 4th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what did you do after you found him? I'm sure you called the ambulance. Did they pronounce that he had passed away right then at the house?
No. At the time, my mother lived right next door. And it just so happened that my other 3 children, 1 was younger than him at the time and 2 were older than him. I think they were only the ages of, I know my littlest one was just 1, I think she was 1, and then because he was 3, so then my other one had to be 5, and then my oldest were 7 at the time. They were actually all outside playing with him, and they heard me once he fell. Naturally it's the scream, the scream. And so I was screaming his name, and I started to shake him, and once I realized like something isn't right, I immediately went into chest compressions, actually. My daughter, they were running in, they were just in total shock. Like they were literally stuck because they were just standing there looking like, what is going on? And I told them, go get grandma. At the time, my mom lived right next door. And so I had to shake my daughter, like literally get up and shake her and say, go get grandma. So she took off running. And so I don't even know how I was on the phone. I did call 911. I don't know how I was talking to them and doing him. I'm still not really 100% sure of that, but I was on the phone with 911, and then my mother came over. My mom actually happened to be a retired nurse from the neuro ICU, so she jumped right in and started performing CPR while I was on the phone with 911, while they were asking me, trying to figure out what happened. They were trying to get the address and all of that stuff. At that point, it was like I couldn't watch her work on him anymore, so I ran outside. So I'm outside, I'm like literally screaming like, where's the ambulance? Where's the ambulance? It seemed like forever. Like it just seemed like forever. And so they're telling me to calm down, calm down. And he was already registered with the county, because by his heart being so fragile, they recommend that you let local fire departments and stuff, know, so that if you ever have a 911 call, they already know what they're coming for in that instance. So I let them know, like, he's already on your list. He has the heart problem, And then my sister ended up pulling up because she lived with my mom at the time. So she was on her way. And I actually was on the phone with her and she heard me scream. And then she said the phone just went dead because I hung up and instantly called 911. And so she ended up pulling up. She's also an RN and she took over for my mom and began CPR. When the ambulance arrived, they came inside the home. And I just remember him saying, "Mom, we got to run." And I said, okay. So they picked him up and they ran out and put him in the ambulance. I jumped in the front of the ambulance. And I remember looking back and seeing them still working on him. At this time, like I said, I'm from Michigan. So we were living in Michigan at the time, but my husband was already working in Ohio. So I had to call and I'm like, "Where are you at?" And he said, "I'm on my way home." And I said, "You need to go to the hospital. Something is wrong with Max." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I couldn't just say, I couldn't get them words out because in my mind, I'm not going to lose my son today. So I just said, "You just got to get to the hospital. Something's wrong with Max." So I told him to come up to the hospital and they worked on him. And then I guess it seemed like maybe like an hour or so later is when they eventually stopped working on him, and that's when they pronounced him dead.
Wow. Were you all able to have an autopsy for him?
We were, and they the autopsy, that's what it came back as, is that it was just a massive heart attack.
Wow. So then how did you break that news to your husband as he's coming to the hospital and then going back home to tell your other children what happened?
So my husband was able to make it to the hospital, so he was there when they pronounced him. And that's funny because that was the first question that popped into my head is, how am I going to tell my other children? Mm-hmm. I can't say the words. Like, how? And I just remember my mom saying they already know. And I'm like, well, how do they know? Well, when I came out into the waiting room, I had a slew of family there. I had church members there. I don't know how the word got out and how it got out that fast, but anybody who I could say like was supposed to be a part of my support circle was already there. So I never had to say it. It was already done for me. Afterwards, I just remember my body just being like I had no control over it. It was like a tremble. I have it right now, as a matter of fact. It's like you can't see it, but my whole body trembles. I just shake so uncontrollably in the inside. And I think most of it is from suppressing emotion. Like I don't let it all the way out. And so I just tremble really bad in the inside. And then I try to calm myself down, clear my mind, think about something else, go do something else, because I don't have any control over what's going on in the inside. I just remember I had a very, very hard time sleeping afterwards. I just couldn't. I don't know if I was afraid or what, but I could not sleep afterwards. It took me weeks and weeks to be able to sleep, terrified of being left alone. My kids, they say, "Mom, I don't feel good," and I get a panic, like a sickness over me. And I'm like, I can't, where's your dad? Because it's still just hard to hear my stomach hurts and it could be because they ate too much candy or, something like that. But those words still just hit me totally different than before when a kid would just come to me and say, "Mom, I don't feel good." I processed it totally different now.
Absolutely. And I think that we all process our grief differently. And I love that you shared just how you've been feeling and dealing and grieving throughout this process. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of change gears a little bit and really just talk about just how are you now? We have been in a global pandemic over the last 7 months.
Right.
COVID has rocked all of our world. So how have you and your family managed through this pandemic?
So it's been really tough because the pandemic, I guess where it kind of like broke the news was in February. And February is usually when the most sensitive part of me of my emotions come, because that's right when the death anniversary, and then following it right away in May is his birthday. So that I was like, okay, this is going to be different, because usually what we do is we usually do a balloon release, with my immediate family on his death anniversary. My sisters usually come and just chill with me, just to keep my mind at ease so I'm not constantly thinking. There's usually somebody besides just my husband and my children around. And this year I wasn't able to do that. So we took advantage of Zoom. We took advantage of House Party, which is another app, and doing like a lot of Facebook and just a lot of face-to-face chats like this versus just on the phone. My family, we really got big into that, and they're usually not even the type to do that kind of stuff. They be like, girl, I don't know how to work technology, but they really push through for themselves to be able to do that for me. Every year on his birthday for May 1st, I call it Maximilian Day. And his favorite chips were Ruffles cheddar and sour cream chips. So I usually ask everybody to buy a bag of those chips, post a picture with them, and we call them Duty Chips because his nickname was Duty. And so everybody, like, I had like a slew of people that had took pictures with the chips. From when I transferred out here from my old job, the whole entire Heartland of Ann Arbor had took pictures with them and sent them to my sister to send them to me. Brand new coworkers that I've just met with, I had people drop off small cake with his favorite color balloons and left them on my porch. And I actually had this year decided too, I had t-shirts made that said forever and always in my heart. And I had those made, and people had purchased those shirts, and everybody was wearing them. So I just tried to think outside the box, and it actually ended up helping and benefiting me a lot, as well as my husband. He still can be like not so talkative about it. I don't know if it's mainly a male thing, like he doesn't fully express himself like me, but I could tell that made him feel real warm in the inside as well. Mainly because I had never put up a picture of my son since he passed. Some people thought that was odd because most people do the opposite, but it was too hard for me to constantly see those pictures of him hanging up. So for the first time, I had actually hung up a picture of him. So I actually have one picture of him hung up in my house now.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you honored him in that way. So I am curious, for you and your family, how have you navigated parenthood after child loss? Because I can imagine, you mentioned earlier about it being different and difficult when your child comes and says that they're sick or something's wrong with them. But how has it been parenting other children and kind of going back into the fold of being a parent after you've lost a baby? I still consider kids under 10 babies, so it's a baby.
Right.
So, really share with us how did you navigate your parenthood journey? And if you did differently, what did you do differently?
I really think I probably kind of smothered them, like very, very overprotective. No, you can't stay the night over anybody's house. No, you can't go over your friend's house. No, you can't go, And I kind of, too, also thought like maybe because they were small that they would kind of forget. And one of the things that kind of smacked me so hard was one year on his birthday, it felt like, I believe, like on a Friday, or it was a school day. And I didn't say anything to them. I got them ready for school like regular because I didn't want to, I didn't want to disturb their mind. And so if I was figuring they just didn't remember. And when I picked him up from school, my daughter said, "It was sad at school today." And I said, "Well, why?" And she said, "Because today's Max's birthday." And I said, "I didn't know you knew. I didn't even tell you the date. I didn't say anything." And they was like, "Mom, how could we forget?" Mm-hmm. And so then that's when I had to say to myself, just because they're small, they still have their own way of processing it. And you can't just say, oh, they'll forget, because they didn't forget. They were there like you were there. They might not do the grief and going through it the same way as me, but there's a way that they have to go through it too. So that's when I really started to make sure they were included in different things that we did, that I thought I was doing in private to honor him. I made sure I really started to include my children in the honoring of him. I asked them what things that they like to do. And they'll say, can we bake him a chocolate cake? Or, Mom, can we make sure, don't forget to put Max's Christmas stocking up? Like, they still want him to be included as a part. They never want me to feel like he just was non-existent. They don't like that at all. So they are more so a reason of how I started to feel like, oh, I can outwardly still honor him. It's, I did get them into counseling. It started throughout their school. They had grief counselors and regular counselors for children at the school. That helped them a lot because they were able to, by them being professionals, they had different strategies that they would do for children with different paintings and art and different ways to help them be able to get a lot of their expression out. But even when we moved to the new area, they told their new friends, yeah, we had a brother and he passed away, but his name was Max. They still make sure that they keep their brother's name alive. They make sure they keep his story alive. They understand, that, he's in heaven. We're very much Christian. So, they understand all of that. And, it's crazy because my now 5-year-old, who is right under him, she mentions him the most. And that's the one who I thought would have the smallest memory of him by her only being 1 year old. I thought that her memory would have completely forgot, but she says it often. And a couple of weeks ago, she actually asked, so when is Max coming back from heaven? It's been too long. What the heck? When is he coming back? And I just had to walk away, and I had to leave her with my husband because I would have just lost it. And I don't want to lose it in front of them. I've been told that it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes they need to understand that it still hurts mommy, but I feel like sometimes it's just too much for me to show them that part. So I have not let them see that part. If I have a complete meltdown, I don't let them see it.
Understood. And I agree that it's good to show them outwardly that you grieve and that you cry and that you get sad sometimes.
Yeah.
So at some point, I'm sure you're going to get strong enough to be able to show
right.
that. But what I absolutely love, it seems like your kids almost willed you all to actually be outward with your grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they honor their brother, especially the older ones who really remember, played with him, did things with him. And, out of the mouth of babes, or your youngest daughter asking, when is he coming back from heaven? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
To be able to express that. And, now, see pictures around the house of her brother, her bigger brother, older brother who's no longer here. I love that. So what are some of the other ways that you all honor him? I know you mentioned about the balloon release and celebrating him on his birthday. What are some other ways you do it with your children?
So I actually am in the process of getting a whole nonprofit organization off the ground. It's actually called the Maximilian Foundation. And what's funny is that actually was birthed from me going through the grieving process. It wasn't until probably about October of, I believe, last year when I started to really feel like I was friends with God again from me just being so upset. So I started to really go back into prayer and really trying to, just, I guess, reconnect with God. Okay, I forgive you. I understand that, there's purpose beyond this. There's always a meaning. And so the first thing I actually did was I did a vision board party. the vision board party was supposed to just be me, you know, rebirthing myself, because I realized the first thing that I started to realize is that the fight was coming in with me trying to be that old person of myself again, like trying to go back to what I used to be in the old normal me. And I realized that that wasn't going to happen. So I had came up with new goals and, you know, new things to look forward to. And I had did the vision board party. I started the vision board party with just my children at home. It was my niece actually. She was there, and my oldest children. And we had got some regular poster boards, and she was like, Auntie Shira, we can do this. And she had brought over some magazines, and we sat there, and my kids, they had real goals, like they wanted to keep their room clean. They wanted they wanted to start wearing their hair flat ironed. You know, like it was just like, you know, goals that had nothing to even do with Max. And so they were just us starting to do a fresh start. And then after the vision board party, it was almost like I was just kind of being led, you know, by the Holy Spirit to do more, to do more, to do more. So I started coming up with the Maximilian Day, which is on May 1st, his birthday. And the Maximilian Day was just mainly for kids. So that's how my children really got involved, because I wanted all kids to come, all ages, to basically just have a good day. And it was, I didn't want to call it a birthday party. So that's how I ended up just calling it the Maximilian Day. And so I would have kids come over, and I would just give my kids a chance to still celebrate their brother's birthday, even though he wasn't here. And then it just ended up spiraling into this whole, now it's just the Maximilian Day.
Wow, I love that. I love Maximilian Day. And I'm excited about this nonprofit that you are launching in honor of your son. I know that with the help of your kids, it's definitely going to help keep it moving and taking it off the ground. So it's almost like a family affair,
Exactly.
bringing everyone together to honor your son in this manner. So how are you surviving child loss?
You know, some days I ask myself that. Like, some days are so hard. Some days is I just want to lay here and I just want to watch TV. I don't want to be bothered. Some days I don't even know why I'm on edge. Some days I don't understand why my attitude is so off, why I'm so emotional, why I just can't shake the feeling of why I'm feeling like this. And the best thing that I, you know, am able to do is I started to write. I started a blog. It's just called Mashira T, the blogger. I just got on WordPress one day and was like, I'm just going to start a blog. And I don't even write about necessarily specific topics. It's just kind of whatever on my mind, how I'm kind of feeling. It just allows me to be very, you know, honest on paper, and I can put it, you know, my feelings out there and not have nobody come back and judge me in any kind of way, because I'm like, these are my raw feelings. I actually found, you know, talking, I keep finding, first of all, I felt by myself. Like, people don't really talk about child loss like that. It's just like, you just don't really talk about it. And I think it's because so many people are afraid of, you know, hurting your feelings, or they don't want to make you cry, so they don't talk about it. And that's like the best thing ever, is to have things like this when somebody literally wants to hear, you know, what happened. They want to hear about my son. They want to talk to me about it. It gives me a chance to, you know, the main thing is to keep his name alive. If I can't do anything else, if I could hear his name, for crying out loud, like, I can't see him, I can't touch him, I can't do anything. So to take away that piece of not even being able to talk about him leaves me with what? You know, so that helps a lot, you know, being able to do these type of things. I recently even started, and I think I was inspired by you, as a matter of fact, when I seen the sister-in-laws. I was like, oh, I want to start something like that too. So I started a My Little Red Cardinal, and that stemmed from the significance with cardinals. It was like, I didn't even know at first, but after he passed away, I noticed in my yard, I would just always start to see cardinals all the time. And so I was just like, I don't know, I didn't think anything of it. So then I started to think, every time I think about my son, it's like I see a red cardinal. And it's like God's little way of saying, he's okay, or he's always with you, or whatnot. And so that's how I came up with the name My Little Red Cardinal. When we moved out here to Ohio, it took months for us to see a cardinal. I almost went into a depression because I'm thinking, he doesn't know where I am. I'm not at that house anymore. He can't find me. And it was like depressing. And then all of a sudden, cardinals just started to appear. And that was actually around the time when I went ahead and put his picture up. And then I actually got my sister-in-law bought me some like fake red cardinals. And then so I have the red cardinals that are flying around his picture as well. So I just really try to do my best in finding ways to keep his name alive, finding ways to help other mothers. Like, you are not in this by yourself. The grief process is long and it's different from everyone. They have what they call stages of grief, but you don't go through them like step 1, step 2, step 3. You go through them all over the place. You don't know what step is going to hit you, and you don't know at what time the step is going to hit you. That's part of the reason why at the time I still choose to only work part-time, because my emotions, sometimes my anxiety has peaks sometimes so bad that they don't understand that work when I say I can't focus, I can't work, I can't do it. I literally feel sick, and they don't quite get it. So I'm like, instead of me trying to constantly explain it to you, I'm just going to be a part-time worker. So at least I can have enough strength to get myself together on those couple days when I need to go to work. And then I have time at home to be able to let things out when I need to, or however the day may go. But I'm hoping that one day I'll be able to really have my foundation really take off and go, and then eventually just be able to be in business for myself, because sometimes I just honestly don't see myself being able to work full time like I used to be able to. Sometimes I just don't feel like I'm able to do it. But that could just be a right now thing. I don't know. But I know in the current place that I'm at, it's really hard for me to be able to take on a full-time job outside the house.
Understood. Well, this has been a pleasure. Where can our viewers connect with you after this goes live?
My Facebook pages, I'm actually under Shy Mother of 5 Taylor. My Maximilian page is the Maximilian Foundation. And I also, if they are, interested in being a part of the support group, which is where I just allow moms to be very vulnerable. I keep that page private just because I don't want people to just come in and be able to, read and comment on mothers like that. That's My Little Red Cardinal. And they can also find me on WordPress under Mashira T, the THEE blogger.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mashira, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for creating this platform. Like, you don't have any idea how many moms you touch. Like, you see the couple, and I'm saying couple very lightly because you have lots of comments and lots of posts. That's a very small fragment of mothers you touch. And I say that from the bottom of my heart, because there's not very many platforms out there, which is why I mainly want to start this foundation, to create another one, to be able to connect with one mom might, like you said, be in Virginia, one might be in Michigan, one might be in Florida. And no matter where you are, there should always be somewhere locally for you to have some type of a tangible platform. And it's not there. So I thank you so much for starting this, and I appreciate it so much. And thank you again for having me and allowing me to tell my story.
Thank you so much, Mashira. And yes, start that so I can start sending people your way.
I said I wasn't gonna cry. I'm sorry.
Oh, you did fine. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. There are so many ways to connect with the Sisters in Loss community. Join our monthly support group, our Sisters in Loss Healing Collective at sistersinlosshealing.com. Join our free Facebook group at sistersinloss.com/community or text sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. That is sisters to 797979 to download your free Journal to Healing ebook. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sisters in Loss and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Yeah, girl, we on YouTube at Sisters in Loss TV. We love you for listening. Keep the faith. Until next time, this is Erica, and I'll talk to you soon.